dear audience. Hope you all had a great Halloween. I recently came across this quote: Halloween is the only time people can become what they want without getting fired. And I had a good laugh. Obviously, who wants to get fired? Isn't Halloween the only time when we can don a new mask and disguise ourselves? So then, does this imply that we can culturally appropriate communities in order to masquerade for a party? What do you guys
No, of
think?
course not.
No, of course not. But don't we still do that implicitly?
Yes, I think we do. And to shed some light on this topic, let's talk about the show Dear White People.
Hey, before you continue, didn't this show's announcement clip cause a lot of controversy in the States?
Oh, it absolutely did. The show was severely criticized by the predominantly white cishet population for putting reverse racism, and it is seen as a direct attack on them. This led to a backlash in social media, leading to almost 360,000 dislikes. But it is not surprising that many white viewers' initial reaction to the show named Dear White People is outrage, since the show's premise is to build on deconstructing the racism, discrimination, and microaggression people of color frequently encounter at the hands of the white people.
Well, they say never judge a book by its cover. The show deals with important topics such as racism, racial identities, the various lived experiences, and other social issues that are excessively prevalent in several spheres of society, ranging from education to jobs to politics of the country in the equitable 21st century. The show also helps deconstruct stereotypes, and this is why it is a particularly necessary and relevant show, especially for the youth.
Even while discussing such serious issues, this show makes us laugh out loud. Initially, the brilliant use of the narrator, who is an invisible, omnipresent voice that is used by director Justin Simon, is commendable. The role of the narrator is to use satire to lighten the atmosphere and move the writers and directors who don't want to establish a background, yet use the ethnic but non-threatening voice of Giancarlo Esposito, a black person, so as not to offend the sentiments of the banal audience. The narration is used to criticize the prestigious fictional Ivy League schools and their ways of showing diversity by grouping all the ethnically diverse paper for the admissions brochure. The narration also talks about how it is an actual thing that white teenagers like to dress up as black people and hilariously tell us to Google it. And interestingly, only in the first few minutes of the show, we can see the racist mentality of categorizing all black people into one, which makes us laugh at their innate assumptions. We see this when people on campus are asking Samantha White inappropriate questions and making assumptions about her, like, "You look like Beyonce."
Hey, no more spoilers.
All right, but dear audience, you understand the use of ironic sarcasm in the show, and hope you laugh through each episode while binging on popcorn. And as we have established, the show uses dark humor to avoid overwhelming the audience, which is primarily white, and who have just found themselves suddenly in the spotlight for their own behavior and experiencing being generalized for the time. So, giving an overview of the first 3 episodes of the season of the show, it has been created in a way that it dedicates episodes to each character. These episodes highlight the individual personalities, paradigms, and relations with each other. It also gives the audience a view into the choices each character makes and the struggles each character has. The first 3 episodes focuses on a character of Samantha White, Lionel Higgins, and Troy Fairbanks. Let's delve deeper into each one of their complex lives.
Samantha White, a biracial woman that is the driving force behind black activism in the university, fiercely articulates her militant politics by calling out on-campus racism as the host of the radio show Dear White People. To comment on the fact that the name of the series and Sam's radio show appear to be an attack on white people, I think the show writers very cleverly avoided by giving Samantha, a white love interest, Gabe, an eager to please postgraduate student. As Gabe tries to find his way around Samantha's environment, which is largely occupied by black people, Dear White People explores the difficulties of allyship between races through relationship. After the Dear Black People party, Samantha's friends are hostile towards the couple, seeing Gabe with distrust and accusing Samantha of not being as woke as she claims to be. The program is sympathetic to both Gabe, who's trying to do the right thing but unintentionally veers into the white savior complex terrain, and Samantha, who wonders if she's being hypocritical by falling in love with her oppressor while being a strong supporter of black rights. In this sense, Dear White People primarily addresses the issues of what it means to be woke and how to function in a society that frequently rejects political correctness.
Lionel Higgins, a shy, nerdy, and awkward queer boy who's dedicated campus journalist and finds himself standing out in these predominantly heteronormative black male and queer communities. It is also very fascinating and refreshing to see the scene where Lionel comes out to Troy as the latter gives him a haircut in his style, as it is a new high for the treatment of queer characters on a TV show, and especially a person of color queer character. I think Lionel's character also resonates with the general teenage viewers when he fails to find a label, while Silvio, the head of the journalism committee, almost always suggests him to find his label in order to complete his identity.
Then there is Troy Fairbanks, a victim of an overbearing father who expects him to be Mr. Perfect and who overcorrects him in response to the negative stereotypes and persistent difficulties that black males endure. Troy, as we can see, does not have autonomy of his own, and it is always his father who decides everything for him. Unlike the American culture where children have more freedom, Troy was always under his father. He couldn't even choose the college of his choice, but rather his father's. Troy is good at politics because he is under the guidance of his father. But not to say he is an extremely diplomatic guy who deals with all people in a very amicable manner. The way he says, "My first priority to everyone" illustrates this fact, and this all made him win the election.
Also, to point out how the blackface Halloween party was an instigator to wake up people and make them aware of the racism that is prevalent on campus. Unfortunately, this isn't too far from reality, as we hear Samantha rant about how this seemingly normal and justified mockery and prejudice against the blacks by the whites belittle them and create such unsafe spaces for them as to innocent young people of color are being shot for just existing. How it took the killings of Sandra Blank, Trayvon Martin, and Philando Castile to make people conscious of the ingrained discriminatory nature of the system. Sadly, this isn't something of the past yet. In the year 2020, we witnessed the brutal killing of George Floyd, a black person, as a result of police brutality or racial violence. This eventually led to protests and marches in support of Black Lives Matter, which became yet another occurrence to shock society and spark national and finally global protests. The show also discusses this, but we also have to understand that by bringing up all lives matter while particularly discussing Black lives, it devalues and shifts the focus from the issue itself. As with any movement, this movement was also encountered by criticism and backlash, as people claimed the movement is very self-centered and should be all lives matter. Although racism is a serious issue in the United States, our country isn't far behind. Our government's official response to the death and attacks of African American students have been horribly patronizing, refusing to acknowledge the casteism and colorism that is deeply ingrained in the Indian society. The increase in violence occurrences against Muslims and Dalits is a merely small part of India's overall system of oppression.
I totally agree with you, Sia. I think the show makes one introspect about their own actions by showcasing the brutal reality on a silver platter. And to do this, the director uses several cinematic tools. So now let's talk about the fabulous use of camera shots and direction in the series. To begin with, the first few episodes move to and forth between the present and the Halloween party and provides different perspectives for the same. This creates a sense of flashback and flash forward, making the series more intriguing. While this isn't the only thing that makes this unique piece of art, the director uses several cinematic techniques to keep the audience engaged and even make cinema critics smile. Firstly, the season begins with an aerial shot of the campus, establishing a background setting of the campus, highlighting its beauty as well as creating an atmosphere with bright sun rays and clear blue sky. This one seems to be my favorite, while also criticizing the rich Ivy League school subliminally. Then we see the director uses deep focus on Samantha's face, while keeping her expressions in focus and also showcasing those of those who were prevalent in the background, to highlight the racism and prejudices against black people held deeply by the white. Moving forward, we observe POV shots in this scene, which gives us the impression that the characters are directly talking to the audience, making us hear their perspectives and not merely listen to them, giving their verbatim and false beliefs importance as well as creating humor, as we can directly see the expression and imagine the expressions of the black people who might listen to these on a daily basis. The second episode then very cleverly uses a pan 360 shot as it showcases or highlights the proximity between Lionel and Troy's bedrooms and the thin walls. Additionally, it points out that Lionel has a poster of Troy in his bedroom, and the wallpaper on his laptop also adds to the erotic environment, which in totality points out that Lionel is having a crush on Troy while he's trying to figure out his identity and personality. Through the series, we see the usage of zoom in and zoom out to emphasize a particular character and their emotions. Now, while you may think that the camera angles are the only thing that the director uses, but that isn't true. He very cleverly changes the color palettes to showcase the same situation at different times, which is ironic and sarcastically criticizes the structure of society. Also, the theater party, we see that usage of color red in yellow lighting provides an image of mystery and love and eroticness, which deeply resonates with the character of Lionel.
All in all, it's a good watch. The backdrop of the show makes it look as if it were a period drama, maybe giving into the aristocratic nature of Ivy Leagues. That means so much to the characters of the show. It tries to tackle the topic of an institutionalized system of racism prevalent till this day. Whether they are good or bad at that can only be decided on what your political leanings are. Racism is a huge and inescapable part of the American cultural paradigm. But it'd be nice to think that realistically, at some point in the future, it wouldn't be necessary to have a body explicitly called the Black Caucus, or a radio show / TV show called Dear White People, but instead would just be the caucus and Dear People. I understand there are myriad complex social, socioeconomic, and cultural issues in America that are so deeply rooted in the subconsciousness of that country and that affect black people so deeply and so pervasively that a television show depicting the treacherous waters they are forced to swim in every day is probably long overdue. But it'd be progressive to see or hear even just one of the characters depicted just once to bring up the fact that no matter how many years of they and we there might be under the proverbial bridge, no matter how much social, cultural, historical inequality exists, which is by no means restricted to that which pertains to race. We are all just people. Maybe one day it won't be necessary to focus on the aesthetic differences between us all. But it will all be taken for granted, like eye color, hair color, and anything else. Skin color is just another unimportant, wholly inconsequential aesthetic difference between some people.